Hi, I wanted to talk about everything that's happened in the last week. So, in my previous video, I talked about the spotting I was having, and the nurse that I talked to at my fertility clinic didn't think it was a problem. My HCG level had gone up that first day of spotting when I went and got it checked, but she suggested that I get an earlier ultrasound that Friday instead of waiting until the following Wednesday. So my spotting continued very lightly through the week, although the Thursday I didn't really have any, and the Friday I had nothing. So I was feeling stressed. It was a really stressful week, and every time I went to the bathroom, if there was pink or brown or anything, I was really upset. But I had tried really hard to keep myself calm. And a lot of the things I read online, a lot of people had bleeding, and as long as it didn't have any cramping, everything was fine. So I thought that I was fine. The only pain I had like a little tiny bit of cramping. Mostly, it wasn't like uterus cramping. It was mostly, I had like a little bit of lower back pain. And that very first day I had what felt like sciatic nerve pain down my right side. But I thought it was unrelated. I had slipped. It was icy that day, and I couldn't see why I would be having one-sided pain and not even in my abdomen. So I don't know. I had convinced myself that it was probably okay, but the morning of the ultrasound, I was still really, really nervous. It felt like stage fright, like you're about to do a big presentation in front of your class or something. And I went in there and they did a transvaginal ultrasound. So I was 6 weeks on the dot. And the doctor started the ultrasound, and within 5 seconds she said, "How much bleeding did you have?" And right there I knew. And I told her it was just like a little bit, maybe that first day, maybe a couple of actual drops. Other than that, just a tiny bit of spotting and like some brown. Like nothing, certainly not enough to fill a pad or even like a liner, I was just wearing liners all week. And so she was looking with the ultrasound wand, and after about 30 seconds, she said, I'm not sure. I don't think this is very good. And I looked at Lane, and I just, like, that was it. She didn't have to say anything else. She kept looking, and she was like, I'm really worried. I'm really worried about this. I should be seeing things, and I'm not. And I knew what she was looking for. She should have seen a big black space, which would have been the sac, and then a white circle, which would have been the yolk, and then a white, kind of like clump, which would have been the embryo. And she should have seen a heartbeat as well at 6 weeks, but there was nothing. She couldn't find anything. And she said, she looked for another like maybe minute, and then took out the wand and said, I really don't think this is good news. I'm sorry. So she said there's 3 options. There are 3 possibilities. The first and most likely is that sometime earlier this week, when you first experienced your spotting, the embryo stopped developing, and the sac has collapsed, and your body has started to work to break down the pregnancy. And that's why we're not seeing anything. Second option is it's an ectopic pregnancy, and the embryo has implanted outside of the womb, but I don't see any evidence of that. And third and least likely is that you have a pregnancy and I'm just not seeing it. But she said, she was like, I've done this thousands of times. I do it every day. And, it's very unlikely that I'm not finding it. But we'll send you up and get your HCG done again. We'll see where your levels are at, and then we'll go from there with a plan. And so I knew that it was over. I already knew the HCG in my mind was just to clarify, if I was going to need a DNC or if it was ectopic, because then the levels would be really high. So I, basically avoided, I didn't speak, Lane and I didn't talk, and avoided eye contact, and just trying to keep my cool. So we went upstairs and I got my blood taken, which was awful, and I have 2 massive bruises on each side because they had to fish around, and then they couldn't get it in the first arm and they had to go in the other one. And we went home, and as soon as we walked in the apartment door, I burst out crying. And we talked for a little bit while we were waiting for the call from the nurse. I texted everybody because I couldn't talk to anybody. So I texted everybody and told them what was going on. I called in sick for work, and after lunch, the nurse called and said my beta had gone from 928 on Monday to 86 on Friday. So that was the confirmation they were looking for and we needed. Really good news, if you can get good news from that. Good news is that very unlikely that it's ectopic. Most likely, my body had already passed the pregnancy, or most of it, and it wouldn't be a problem, and I wouldn't need a DNC because my levels were dropping and dropping fast. So the rest of the weekend was just working on plans for the future. Trying to focus on positives that can come of this, and trying to make plans so that it doesn't seem so bleak right now. So the plan is that we're going to, as long as we're allowed, as long as our doctor says it's okay, we're going to transfer one of our remaining embryos, hopefully in April, and hopefully that works. Everyone, all the nurses, everything points to the fact that this is just a random anomaly, and I was able to get pregnant, which is awesome. I had never been pregnant before. We didn't know if I would be able to, and I am. So it doesn't look like there was a problem with my body. The most likely cause is that there was just a random defect in the embryo, and it was just unfortunate luck that was the one that was picked for our first transfer. So hopefully the next one goes well. I shouldn't have it should work. I got pregnant the first time. Very good chance of getting pregnant the second time around. Hopefully it won't end in miscarriage. If it does, or if the transfer doesn't work, then we'll be doing hopefully June. And if both of them don't work, then I guess we will be doing another IVF cycle next year. But we won't be doing a fresh transfer, because I think a lot of the stress, there was a lot of added stress because I felt so physically unwell still from egg retrieval, like very tender, and like until Saturday I couldn't even wear pants. You know, everything just felt tight on my abdomen, and bending over was just uncomfortable, and I just want to, I mean, I know I'm going to feel that again if I have to do IVF again, but it'd be nice to not be pregnant at the same time and wondering what's ovarian pain, what's uterine cramps, what's the pregnancy, what's the egg retrieval. I think it will be much nicer these next 2 transfers that we do to not have to deal with that at the same time. I wish I had known that going into it. But that's the plan going forward, and we're trying to stay positive, and I think I'm doing pretty well. I know that miscarriage is sometimes like a taboo subject, and a lot of people have reached out to me in the last few days and shared their stories. So like family members who I didn't realize had miscarriages, and friends. And it really helps to know that you're not the only one. So maybe this will help someone, this video. And if you're watching because you're experiencing it, then I'm really sorry. It's a horrible thing to go through, whether you've been trying for years like me, or whether it was, an accidental or unplanned pregnancy. It doesn't matter. It's just something that is a fact of life, but because of our society, it's just kind of like, it's just hush hush, and I feel like women feel like there's shame in it, and there isn't. I mean, science has proven now that if you have a healthy embryo, if it's a healthy pregnancy, you can't do anything to cause a miscarriage. And the opposite is true if it's not healthy. If it's not going to work out, you can't do anything. And you don't want it to work. You don't want to stay pregnant if the embryo has problems. So I'm trying to take solace in that. And for me it helps. So I'm kind of ranting now, but that's what's happened. My cat's upset because I'm upset. That's what happened, and hopefully I will be posting a video within a few months about my next transfer.